My name is Shane Nixon, and this is my place in Canadian history. My story starts off with my great-grandparents, Cecil Pelvin and Ruth Swartz. My great-grandfather, Cecil Pelvin, was born in England in 1909. He came to Canada because he was a policeman in England at the time and wanted to come to Canada to pursue his career as a cop, and so he could better support his large family of 8 kids. But when he eventually did come to Canada, he had no longer wanted to be a policeman, and instead opened up a fish and chip store right near where they lived in Toronto. This store was open when the Christie Pit riot happened in Toronto, but nothing bad happened to my great-grandfather's store during the riot. His son Vern enlisted in the war and traveled overseas training, but never fought in any important battles. This boat is the first boat he ever stepped foot on for the Canadian Army and spent lots of time traveling overseas on that boat. Throughout the years he served in the Army, he never fought in any battles and was never injured. My grandma, Diane Coyle, who was one of 8 children growing up, born in Canada and grew up in Markham. She lived through both the Great Depression and World War II. My grandma said that during the war, herself and sister were left at home while her dad helped out at the ammunition factories and her mom went to school to become a nurse, wanting to work on the front lines in the war. My grandma said that she was always scared that her dad was going to be injured or killed when working in the ammunition factories, and she said that she had seen the factory once and that it had looked very dirty and a dark place to work, and that there was many bombs and explosive equipment being made for the war. This was also scary for my grandmother at the time, as they did not live too far away from the factory. My grandfather Ted Coyle, who originally worked for a gas company called BP, had to work in the ammunition factory when World War II occurred. It was not the best job, he said, and he was not getting a good amount of money, but he said that it was what he had to do to help out with the war effort, and it was just something that everybody had to do and try to help out. Then my grandma, Diane Coyle, and my grandfather, Ted Coyle, bought a house together in Markham and got married. They had 3 children, my mother, my aunt, and my uncle. Now for my dad's side. My grandma, Shirley Nixon, was born in Detroit, Michigan, then moved to New Jersey when they had my dad in 1966. They moved again from New Jersey to Scarborough, Ontario, where they lived for 15 years. After my dad grew up and moved out of my grandparents' house, they then moved to London, Ontario, where they still are today. They had to move to London, Ontario because of the company transfer with Bell. My grandpa Jack Nixon was born in 1905 in Madoc, Ontario, which was known for a lot of mining and lumber. Much of Madoc was a big lumber and mining town, which wasn't very wealthy, and much of Madoc was destroyed and left behind once all the mining was finished. Living through the war and depression for them was hard, especially for Jack Nixon. In Madoc there was no ammunition factories nearby and not much he could do to find a job to help with the war effort. So the whole city of Madoc never did anything to help with the war, and nobody really focused or paid attention to the city after they stopped mining it. Then my grandfather Jack Nixon and grandmother Shirley Nixon had my dad Al Nixon. My dad, Al Nixon, was born in New Jersey in 1966, then moved to Montreal when he was 2 years old because of a company transfer while his dad was working for Bell. My dad then moved from Montreal to Scarborough, Ontario when he was 4 years old. My dad grew up in Scarborough throughout middle school and high school, playing baseball and hockey. After high school, my dad moved on to college where he attended Seneca College, where he met my mother, Lisa Nixon. My mother, Lisa Nixon, was born in Toronto but grew up in Markham, Ontario. My mother grew up in a small house in Markham with one sister and one brother. She went to William Armstrong Public School and Markham District Secondary School. While my mom attended high school, she got her first job working at an ice cream store in Markham, where she worked all throughout her high school years. After graduating from high school, my mother attended Seneca College, where she studied fashion merchandising. While attending Seneca College, my mother met my dad. They dated all throughout college, and after college, at the age of 23, they got married, and 10 years later, they had me and my twin brother, Drew Nixon. I was born September 3rd, 1999, at Markham Stouffville Hospital next to my brother. I have lived and grown up in Markham, Ontario since 1999 and attended E.T. Crow Public School. I currently attend Bill Carruthers Secondary School. I hope to receive an athletic scholarship to a school in the United States for baseball. Growing up, baseball has been a big factor in our family. My dad and grandpa both used to play baseball and now pass it down to me. I love the sport and hope to, in the future, receive a scholarship to Ole Miss University to play for their baseball program. Canadian history is a key part of what has made me who I am today, and hopefully my story and my family's lessons will live on for generations to come. My name is Shane Nixon, and now I understand my exact place in Canadian history.